Good evening, everyone. This is Naita Green from Disability Community for Democracy, and I am here with Evan Paro. I'm sorry, Evan. You always go scripted.
Nick Paro.
Nick. Oh my God, I got your
It's all
first
right. It's all
name
right. We were
wrong.
talking about Evan Fields beforehand, so I totally understand.
Oh my God, yeah. I'm like, and white people do not look alike, but they think black people do. But you both have beards, so it's there's that. So I do want to say that. So Nick, from Sick of This Shit Publications, and I just want to say thank you for being on. And can you just tell people? I just want to just say like I just want to say this one thing to you. The thing I admire about your work is the fact that even though we might not agree because we have different lived experiences, I'm from the Northeast. I do have some proximity to whiteness due to class and zip code where I grew up, um, and in education. Not the first person in my family to go to college, even though a lot of people in my family join the military. Also, there are people in my family who don't, who go straight to college after high school. Um, the thing I admire about what you're doing is the fact that you're just doing it, right? You're not waiting for any. You're not waiting for permission, and and you're open to people who are going to disagree with you, and that's why I wanted to have you on. Is because I wanted to talk about, as a sibling, a niece, a daughter, and a granddaughter of vets. And my grandfather served in the Korean War. My uncle who just passed was stationed in Korea in the 80s. He did 12 years in the military, and my brother served 4 years in the Marines, and then 4 years in the Army National Guard, and he did a tour in Iraq in the 2000s. I wanted to talk about the disabling effects of war and how that impacts you as the veteran, but also how it impacts the family, because what gets left out is that when the soldier goes to war, the family also goes. So
Yes.
so I want to talk about, like, the first question I have is what made you decide to start your to do this work, to talk about masculinity and the effects of war and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me tonight. I really appreciate being invited to be a part of the discussion and to get to talk about this because it's something we often don't talk about. And it's left unsaid on the disabling effects of war and what actually happens and how it impacts us. And so I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come on and speak about this. And so my rationale for all of this, for anyone who may or may not know me, and I know most of the folks with us right now know me, is I'm Nick Paro. I'm an Army veteran. I served from 2013 to 2017. I deployed to Afghanistan during Operation Enduring Freedom, and I came back from Afghanistan not the same person I was when I left, when I went to country. And I've been trying to work through that for the last decade at this point. Because it's 2016, so it's been 9 years. Just going on 10 years next year. Like I've been doing this for myself for a long time because I came back a different person. I also came back and my I had minor disabilities beforehand that I was able to work with and cope through. Like I have ADHD. I've always had ADHD. I'm very high functioning with my ADHD, but I'm also Um, I I would be labeled, I guess, as like a twice gifted, where I have a gift, but I have a disability at the same time. And they don't play well with each other at points.
Relatable to that.
And so I came back and I was in a really bad place when I came back from Afghanistan. My wife could probably talk about it a lot from her perspective of what it was like with me coming back and who I became and how different I was. Um, but then I did the rational thing and I did not lie on any of my post deployment forms and I actually filled them out. And then not too long later, I was med boarded from the military and or the army, and I was med boarded, and I got out with a 90% disability rating from the VA. And from that point on, I've been trying to find a career path and place that I feel at home at and where I can actually work stably. And so I first came home and after I got out, I became a truck driver for a few years. But I knew that wasn't where I was going to be for a long time. And I went back to school and I became a software engineer. And I spent 6 years doing that. And I have to say, the software field is probably the most damaging field I have ever been in. And that includes being in my military service. Like, software was so physically and mentally damaging to me. Um, and then I lost my job last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I lost my job after speaking out in some ways and speaking up for myself and for my friends around me and calling out things that were not right at my work. And I eventually got let go. And I came here, and it was either fall into depression again, because I also suffer from depression and anxiety. Those tend to go hand in hand with ADHD in general. And after coming back from Afghanistan, you become pretty anxious about things, or coming back from war, you're pretty anxious about things around you, and it doesn't really go away. Um, and so I wanted to build a place that I could express myself and give people a place where they could express themselves too, especially other men who were around me and friends that I was starting to make who are either veteran or non veteran, but needed a place to actually be themselves without, in a way that is constructive, but be themselves. And Lawrence Winterman and I, actually, a friend of mine, he, if for met, a lot of folks know who Lawrence is. He and Dana Dubois do their daily whatever show in the morning. Incredible gentleman. Um, Lawrence and I, a few months ago, were talking about what, like, what do I see myself doing over the long term? And he helped me see this path was, I want to make a manosphere that doesn't suck. I want to make a place where men can be men in a way that isn't destructive to everyone else around them, and where men
Yeah,
learn to be men.
I hate the manosphere
Oh my
because
God, I hate it so
I'm
much.
gonna tell you, and I don't mean to cut you off, but like my like this is something I didn't talk about a lot. Like a lot of the military, like, and I do think this is like a younger Gen Xer, older, like a millennial thing. This whole, like we talk about Gen Z getting red pilled, but there's also a sub segment of millennials and younger Gen Xers who were in the military who also got red pilled because the content was so like was new and they were in pain and they had nowhere to go. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, that some of that content, I mean, like stay on your purpose and all of that sounds good, but until you listen to all the misogyny
Hmm.
and the misogyny, the homophobia, and depending if they're well, it doesn't even matter what color their skin is. The prejudice, because some of the black men feel the black podcast in that genre, whatever, don't like white folks. So it's
Hmm.
prejudice. And I'm just like, gross. Right. And I'm like, how are these men that I know who are like, some of these men are like mama's boys, right? Like they
Hmm.
they love their mamas, they're very protective of their moms, but they're listening to this garbage. And I'm like, and it's because there's no place for them to put their energy, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so can you explain what I'm gonna use the term that I understand it. What does
Hmm.
positivity masculinity means, and how does it relate to the disabling effects of war, and how can we stop this from happening? I know this is like kind of sort of like a two-part question.
No,
How can
great.
we
I love it.
stop how can we stop this from happening to the people who are fighting in an illegal war? Because I will say this, unlike the
Hmm.
war that you and my brother and his friends and some of my friends fought in, those wars were not illegal. Congress was like, okay, this
Hmm.
is. So it's illegal. How do we stop them? How do we help them when they get out? How do we
Yeah.
make sure that they don't get sucked in like your friends and my brother and his friends and even some of my
Hmm.
friends who that love me, right? They love me, but I'm just like, I can't listen to the to the misogyny. I just can't.
Yeah. Yeah. To answer the first part of that question, for the first part of your question is, or positive masculinity, or as I have coined it, is intelligent masculinity, is the idea that anybody, it's a better humaning thing. It's not only for men, but it's geared towards men because we're the problem right now in a lot of ways. And no, we're not exclusively the problem. There
Thank you for
are
saying that.
there are women who are the problem too. We're not exclusively the problem. However, we are a high percentage of the problem, and like a statistically high percentage that it's almost irrelevant to talk about at times, the other problems. Because to me, I see all of this as men, well, men were abandoned in their spaces where they could find camaraderie. And so intelligent masculinity is, and positive masculinity is the ability to live with the consequences of your actions and values. It's being able to accept that what you do has a repercussion, good or bad, um, and that you have to live with that, and you have to be willing to make those choices. And whatever the outcome is, hopefully it's good because you live with good values and values of respect and self-care and self-worth. And I've gone to therapy for years, and the best thing I found was a group therapy. And I had done individual therapy and I've done group therapy. I've done both simultaneously, and I found that group therapy was what I needed because I needed a sense of community where I wasn't alone. And part of that positive masculinity or intelligent masculinity is understanding we're not alone, and how do we reform those communities that are no longer there. Like, it's not that we gave up on men, and this is not a oh woe is men thing. We abandoned men in the spaces. We gave up on men's spaces in a lot of ways because they became really toxic. So we didn't take them back from that toxicity. We just let them go. And so we left a whole void in the conversation. And so, to answer the second part of the question and how this also impacts and reflects on the disabling effects of war and coming back from war and the feeling of being lost, is we need to create these spaces again so that when men, primarily men, come back from war, um, they have somewhere that they can go. They have people that they can gravitate towards. They have other veterans that they see are being strong examples of their community and and building a community, because the one thing most veterans search for, doesn't matter race, color, gender, anything,
It's
doesn't
community.
is community.
My brother, right? And I say this all the time. All of his buddies that he's still friends with, right, are either cops, police, firefighters, or veterans, right? Even the ones that aren't, that never served, because my brother has said this. He said, for almost 30 years I have taken an oath to the U.S. Constitution, and as a police officer, to the Constitution, to the state that he lives in, and he's tired.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing that saved him is that he's also gotten therapy at certain points, and he's had therapy before for other reasons before he went into the military. And so he was able to not get so sucked in, and understood, like, some of this doesn't make sense, some of it I could apply. He wasn't completely, like, you know in like messed
He
up.
wasn't alone.
He wasn't alone. Like, he had a job that he had to go to every day. He's
It's
he's never
it's a
lived
lot.
he's never lived like, this is very interesting. For the brief he's pretty much, except for the brief time he's lived on his own, most of his life he's never, like, ever, pretty much he's never lived alone. And I do think the fact that he's hasn't lived alone for most of the time he's been out of the military, and even on the job, he had roommates. He was in a relationship at one point with one of his kids' mothers, like, stuff like that. I do think that kind of stabled him out a little bit, because
Mm-hmm.
he was around other people, and he knew that he couldn't, like like the difference between right and wrong. And also, I didn't abandon him, right?
Mm.
Like, I would fight with him sometimes, say, I'm never talking to you again, and call my mother and tell my mother, like, all the things. My mother would be like, one, you don't mean that. Two, is your brother. You guys just need to, like, go in corners, whatever. And then, of course, my brother would call my mother, and she would tell him the same thing. And then, like, 3 months
You have
later,
a good mom.
yeah, like, your mom is like my mom, in the sense of, like, she calls a thing, and she doesn't care who's wrong. Like,
Oh yeah.
if I'm wrong, she's gonna tell me. If my brother's wrong, she's gonna tell me. If our stepfather, mine and my brother and stepfather is wrong, who is like the father figure we had after my mom left my father, she'll tell him to his face if he's done something to me my mom thought he was wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so she doesn't do this whole, like, secret thing, which is good and bad, and sometimes, but it also kept my brother accountable. And you having your wife saying, nah,
Mm-hmm.
get help or else, you
Yeah,
know.
and you say that, and I don't know if I mentioned that fully. Is I came back and I had severe anger issues. Severe anger issues. I was bullied while I was downrange. I was belittled a lot while I was downrange, and it was actually by one of my female sergeants who did it, and she did not like me. She didn't like me. I think there were other things going on with another personnel member that I won't get into that was probably causing some of it. Um,
Mhm.
but she didn't like me. And I spent 6 months being harassed in a lot of ways and belittled. And then I came back and I was angry, and I didn't know how to handle that anger.
Mhm.
I didn't know how to properly express it or speak about it. I didn't have the words for it, even though I grew up really fortunate in my mom is a child developmental psychologist. She's a licensed, now retired licensed school psychologist, and so she gave me a lot of tools growing up.
Mhm.
but I was in such a bad place. I didn't remember them. I couldn't use them. I wasn't who I am now. I was,
Mhm.
if anyone had met me 6 years ago, 8 years ago, they wouldn't have recognized me. They wouldn't know who I am right now. I'm not the same person. I am so much better of a person in terms of my mental health and my community health. Because, like your brother, I had someone at home who was willing to love me and tell me the truth and
Mhm.
tell me to my face, you need help. You need
Mhm.
to go get help and you need to fix it and you need to do it yourself. And I did. I'm
Mhm.
lucky. I listen, and that's something that I think I'm decent at. Is listening and listening to hear rather than just respond. And I wasn't happy to hear it, but I went to therapy anyway. Wasn't
Right.
happy to hear that I had anger issues, but I went to therapy anyways. And it was a group therapy, and it wasn't as good of a group therapy that I needed. It wasn't exactly what I needed in the end. It gave me a lot of good tools as I was getting out of the military. And then when I was back from my deployment, I was treated like shit too, because I was med boarding, because I was disabled at that point. I got injured while downrange. I blew out my knees and I hurt my back again. And I have lasting impacts because of all of that. I have degenerative plica disease in my knees, in both my knees. I have radiculopathy now in my entire left leg because I have uh, developed fibromyalgia over the past few years. Um, I have degenerative arthritis and neuroforaminal stenosis in my spine, and it's degenerating, and my discs are out of place. And all of that is due to compacting weight from rucksacks and missions and the deployment. And I was lucky enough also to have a wife who stood up for me during that time to help me get through the med board process and get out of the military and transition into a civilian path. And I didn't realize it, how lucky I was that my wife, and what ways my wife had helped me without me ever even knowing it. And the reason that I didn't get messed with as much as they could have when I was getting out was because my wife had said something and somebody overheard it who was much higher ranking and made sure it got handled properly. And so I was able to, yeah, my wife does rock. She is the absolute best. And happy anniversary to her from yesterday. We're happily married now for 11 years.
Yeah, a happy anniversary to
Thanks.
you and your wife. I do want to say to you, the one thing I do want to say to you, um, it's sometimes it's like, because my brother was in the National Guard, so his process was a little bit different from yours because he first, he couldn't just get out,
Hmm.
right? Because because they had to he had to get deactivated, so then he get, you know so he could be under state command again, and then he could leave. So there wasn't like when you're active duty and you are like hurt or going through disability, it's like one thing. But if
Yeah.
you're a reservist, and especially in you're in a national guard, and it's the state guard that gets activated by the feds to deploy, it's a totally different experience. You were able to like shift things around with your personal life, like because one of my brother's friends, had like a work thing that she could not get out of, and she was going to get fired, like, even
Hmm.
though it was illegal, but they're like, we don't care, right? We can get somebody to do your job. And so, like, that was my understanding. I'm not 100% sure if I'm telling the story accurately because it's been so long ago. It's like been over 20 years since this happened, or
They
around
have
20
they
years.
have better protections now for guard and reservists for
So
work, but not
it's
as what they did.
it sucked back then.
Yeah.
And so long story short, she ended up going separate from her unit, and made it more difficult. She said, I wish I would have gone with you guys. And I think for me, as someone who knows, like, because I actually, my brother and I actually had a friend in common for different reasons. Like, I knew them for a different reason than they actually served together. He ended up getting blown up in a Humvee, and my brother was supposed to be there.
The effects of that are so
And the,
devastating.
and the reason why he was not there was because his MOS had changed. He was a radio operator.
Mm.
It changed to IT and counterintelligence. And so they pulled him and his homegirl. And when they were told your Anthony's gone, they cried like babies for an hour. And then my brother told me the story, and I started crying. I, and then he cried for an hour, and then they were like, "Okay, we got to go to work now." And I'm like, "You got to go to work? Like, are you kidding me?" I would have been like, if I was in the military, I would have been like, I would have lost my mind, and I would have been like, no,
The,
I got to get out of here. No.
the desensitization that you go through to train to be able to try and get past those things, like survivor's guilt is a huge disabling effect of war. PTSD, anger issues, other trauma. I have traumatic brain injury because I was in a vehicle that was right next to a howitzer that went with, and if people don't know what a howitzer is, it's a artillery long gun that shoots a huge round. Um, and we didn't get warning that they were going to shoot it off, and we were inside of a metal can basically, and we whited out. Like, I don't remember a period of that time, and we all came back in and we were like, are any of us dead? Because we
Mhm.
all just know, everybody was like, what just happened? I totally forgot about that when I was doing all my like out processing stuff, and I wish I had put it in there because I know the migraines that I suffer from now, the neck tension that I have, and the issues that I have on a brain side are because of that.
Mhm.
And the impacts of that, and knowing that you're, and going back to the survivor's guilt part of it, and the other side of that in these disabling effects is, even if you're not specifically there, the guilt is real. Like, I have friends who came back from Afghanistan who died 6 months later. I have
Mhm.
friends who didn't make it back, or we know people who didn't make it back. And
Unaliving was definitely. I
22 a
mean,
day,
yep.
22 service members a day, veterans a day killed himself by suicide. And I was very close to being one of those statistics multiple times. And that's a disabling effect of war, is you come home very different. I came home with the trauma of, I would pull my wife and me out of our bed in the middle of the night screaming incoming, because I was having night terrors, and I would grab my wife, which is dangerous. It's also one of the reasons I don't own handguns or weaponry like that, because I know I could be a danger if I had that,
Mhm.
because I could have a flashback and hurt someone. And I don't want that
I,
to be
I
myself or my spouse.
I have a story to tell you about that. So, and this is a disabling effect of war, and I didn't realize it. So, this is when my brother was living alone, and I had the key to his apartment, and I came to surprise him. Right, I was living in Seattle at the time, and I would travel back and forth. And usually, I would just tell him, "Hey, I'm coming for a week. I'm gonna crash." He gave me the keys, like, you can come whenever you want. Just tell me, right? And he was very clear. You need to tell me. Usually,
Yep.
I would pop up. So I open the door, and he's asleep. And I wake him up, and I'm like, wake up, wake up. And he was living alone. and he would bring his service weapon home. He almost shot me
Hmm.
because he was having a bad dream. It's like, what are you doing here? I almost shot you. I'm like I had no words, and he was so mad at me. He wouldn't speak to me for 2 days.
I get that. I get
And,
that.
and I
And
called my mother, and I'm like, what is he mad at me about? She's like, you don't understand. I don't even like when she was living, when he was living with her and my stepfather, and this was before he joined the police department. He They never just like popped up on it because they didn't know, especially when he was sleeping, because they didn't know how he's going to react. They didn't know if he was going to swing on them
mhm,
or whatever. And they're like, that's why he tells you to tell him to call him to let him know you're coming. So
mhm,
he knows like someone's in his house, and if you wake him, he's not surprised,
yeah,
right? And so he didn't speak to me for 2 days. I mean, he would speak to me like if when he went to work or whatever, I'm leaving, but he would not like have like these conversations with me. And then we sat down and talked, and he's like, I've been, because my brother would go to therapy intermittently, but he had to keep it a secret because of
mhm,
his job at the time. This was 08, 09. All the police departments were different. So if you were getting any sort of therapy or whatever, it was suspect
mhm,
that you were getting therapy. And then they were like, well, we need to take your weapon. We need to modify you. And he's like, I'm not suicidal. I don't want to die. I don't want to kill myself, but I do have some things that I need to work through for my combat so I don't hurt somebody on the job, right? He's
yeah,
like, I'm trying to get help so I don't hurt somebody on the job, right? He's
yeah,
like, I'm not concerned about my family because I'm not going to hurt them, right? He has that under control, but when like what would happen to him, it would bring him back to combat. And
mhm,
so he was trying to like he was navigating, trying to get some of that uh, PTSD under control and techniques and stuff. And that's why a lot of times he walks away from stuff. I'm like, well, why do you walk away from stuff? He's like, because I have to, right? Like
mhm,
he just walks off and he's like, I'm not handling this because you're not gonna like how I handle it,
yeah,
right? And that was some of the techniques he's learned. And you probably understand what I'm talking about. When it gets too heated, it's like you just gotta walk away. You
yeah,
can't even engage in it. Like I can get angry and I can argue with you, and I have a stopping point. When you've served, and if I'm wrong, you can correct me. If you've ever been in some either in a firefight, either as a police, like in SWAT or military, you don't have that. That in order to survive, that gets shut off, and it doesn't always come back on. And I think that switch in my brother's broken.
correct. Yeah. The the fight versus flight response becomes fight only for so many
Mm-hmm.
folks who are either veterans or service members of some sort, either police departments, firefighters, even trauma EMTs. They all suffer from similar like traumatic experiences, and you lose the flight response, or you have to figure out how to suppress the flight response, or else you can't work, you can't do your job, because you have to be in a situation where you're probably in danger. And when I was in the military, my job, I did intel work, um, and we were taught how to be very aware of everything around us and how to be aware of the dangers that are possibly lurking behind literally every door in every corner or every conversation or every part of a building or what have you, or
Mm-hmm.
from the people who are supposed to be our allies. We spent missions sitting in, yeah, vigilance, but not even vigilance, it was hypervigilance. And
It's like a head on a swivel kind of sort of thing, as my mother would say. You keep your head on a swivel 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. My brother
it's
talks
so tiring.
my brother talks about that when he calls me sometimes when he's like upset about something on the job or like something in his personal life, and he's like, I need you not to hype me up right now,
Hmm.
because as much as I know you're supporting me, you're actually making it worse.
Hmm. Yeah.
So so can you explain what that means? Because I get like I'm like, as somebody who, like, again, I have disabilities myself, and I have like multiple disabilities. Like, I have my mental health stuff, I have my physical stuff, and I have my, my neurodivergent bucket. I'm like, I don't understand what you mean, don't hype you up. Like, I don't get it. Like, and it's not that I'm not trying to be ignorant, but he used to not say that. He started saying that after he came back. And he's been saying it for like 20 years now, right? He says it when he calls me about anything. Even before he joined the police department, he used to tell me, don't hype me up. I know you're trying to support me. I know you want to like go in, because I'm older. I'm the
Hmm.
older sibling, so I'm still, even though he's grown ass man, I am still the older sister, and there are times where I want to go down to his job and beat some ass, right? I'm just
Hmm.
gonna say it. Like, I just like, nah, you're not gonna mess with my brother, you know? And he's like, I need you not to hype me up. I know if you like, because sometimes he'll like, I know if you come here, and then we're both gonna set it off, and or I'm gonna have to stop you, and then I'm gonna get mad at you for like hyping me up to have to stop you, and like the whole like 9 yards. And he gets into, when he has to stop me when I'm angry because I'm trying to protect him, he gets into that like combat mode. Not
Hmm.
like he does
You
moves.
shut yourself off
Yeah,
from
I just want to
like,
understand what that means. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
so no, totally. I've never used the, or I haven't, can't say I've never used the phrase "don't hype me up." I I haven't used it in that way. However, I do think I understand exactly where he, or from my
Yeah,
perspective
I'm
of
asking you from your
where
perspective.
he might be coming from, and where I would come from on something like that is I've had to do similar in the I need I need a I don't need the emotional uplift of like, I know you've got my back. I know you'll come down and defend me. I know we can do this together. It's the, I need you to tell me, or I need a blocker that says, I'm at a point where I'm broken, almost like a safe word for ourselves of like, this has to be where I step back, or the person who I'm calling to steps back and just says, you need a timeout, or let's give you a timeout where you can go chill,
Mm-hmm.
or I just need to listen, or I just need you to listen when I say these things. I don't want you to respond. I don't want advice. And my wife and I, who are both veterans, use that with each other at times is, I don't need you to respond. I don't want advice. And we're very clear when we say it. And it's hard to become clear in that communication where you're learning to talk about it in a way that isn't criticism towards the person who's trying to help you. Like, because that's sometimes how it does come off, because we get into this guarded state where it's that the hypervigilance and the hypersensitivity comes flooding back in. And we're like, we know, and it happens to me, is I know I can't focus or do anything constructive in that place.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing I need is someone just to be like, hey, I'm here to listen.
Yeah. Okay.
Or I'm here. If you need me, reach out. Or I'll reach out to you. I'll check back in, but I don't want anything. I'm not going to come help you. I'm just here to listen.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, that's been one of the most helpful things to be able to communicate on. Yes, because Kathleen, great comment on that is trauma being misunderstood
Mm-hmm.
is like, it's hard for those around us to see us hurting that way and to see us feeling so fully. in
Hmm.
that capacity, um, especially in a society that tells men that feelings are inappropriate for us and that the only feelings that we should be able to feel are happy, sad, mad, and happy is optional. And we
Yeah,
should
and
really only feel sad or mad.
yeah,
Um,
and that's never been my brother. My brother's always he's never been that guy. My brother's always been like the person who would throw humor, and he still does it. He throws humor at everything,
mhm,
even when he's upset, unless you really push him too far. He's always said like, okay, you know what, you don't want to deal with me, just keep that same energy, just keep that same energy, like, and he's being serious, but he's trying to
mhm.
always using humor, or he'll be like, or he'll clown someone or whatever. and and for a lot of people, take that as softness with him when he's like, really willing to like cry and stuff like that, like. And and he was, what happened was, when our uncle died. Our uncle is our favorite. He was our favorite uncle. He's our favorite uncle. He's my mom's oldest brother. My mom, that was her favorite. That's her favorite brother, and they were my uncle. My uncle Miguel was my mom was his favorite sister, and so, and he was best friends with my father in high school. That's how they met, right? My
So
mother,
very close.
yes. And so I was his first baby. My uncle has kids of his own, but I'm the oldest grandchild on, um like, my family situation is convoluted. So I'm going to say, like, biologically, like the biological family, I am the oldest grandchild, right?
Hmm.
Um and so, because of that, and my brother would go see him weekly, and and he would call him and spend a lot of time with him. Long story short, my brother asked for bereavement, and they wouldn't give him bereavement. They wouldn't even let him take lost time. The guy wanted just he wanted to like he just wanted to like flex, say, well, I'm in charge, so no. And I was so angry when my brother told me that. I saw red, because I'm like, are you kidding me? You've
Hmm.
been on this job for so long. You have given up weekends for this job. You have switched schedules for this job. It's damaged family caused problems in the family for this job. And when your uncle dies, who you were part of his care team, by the way, they won't give you bereavement leave. Or fine, it's like you can't take bereavement leave because it's technically not against policy, like, because he's not on the list of like relatives. But they wouldn't let him take time off either, like just like lost time, like time that he accumulated for overtime that he didn't put in for cash. They said no, he can't do that either, because they need him to do admin work inside that took him only 2 hours to do. And I'm like, you're better than me, because I told him, I said, you're better than me, because I would not have cared about that job. I would have
No, I
not
would
that.
have quit.
I would have, it wouldn't even have been quit. I would have been in jail, because I would have, like, I told my brother that, and he's like, that's why I need you not to hype me up, because you're giving me some ideas, right? And I'm like, I apologize to him. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna listen, right? Because he now only has to tell me once, and I understand, but I understand when he tells me, that's like, okay, stop.
Hmm.
But I didn't understand why, so that's why I asked you. So
Yeah.
so I guess, like, what do we do though, right? Because we're gonna have all of these people coming back from from Iran. There are issues that we didn't have when you came back and when my brother came back. Number one, morale's low. They're not getting packages. Uh, we have everybody in this current regime is a national security disaster. Okay, I I'm going to say this right now. How come I know more about the military than the people who actually have clearance? Like, I'm like, um, to me, this is just common sense. You let
Yes.
packages come through and let them get their food. now they're saying they don't want flu shots are not going to be not
That's going to
required.
lead to so many deaths.
I'm like, are you kidding me? You're putting people in danger already, and flu can kill you. There is something called long flu. I've had long flu before. Not fun. It's similar to long COVID. I mean, mine isn't. It didn't last as long as it lasted. Like 6 weeks, and then it turned into a sinus infection. It was bad. But what are these motherfuckers doing? They're breaking our soldiers. And a lot of these people are mad because they got rid of their friends who are trans, so they don't want to be there. They feel
Hmm.
betrayed because of that. They feel betrayed. Hey, I'm on a boat now, and I can't even get proper food. They're having them eat rations, like the emergency rations. I'm like, have you lost your mind? And these people are hungry. How do you
Hmm.
fight? How do you fight hungry? I
You don't.
I can't fight. I can't do. I'm a tax professional. I can't prepare a tax return when I'm hungry, and we're supposed to expect these people to protect our country. Yeah, good luck.
Yeah. Well, to answer some of that,
I'm sorry. I'm just
no,
angry.
no, 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 no. That was great because it does fit into all of this, and it's so
I'm
well.
angry.
This is the core of this. Is on top of all of that, the Department of Defense, under the illustrious leadership of the alcoholic Pete Hegseth, is they one gutted the tools where service members could use to object to
Mhm.
illegal orders. They gutted the resources so that service members don't know how to become conscientious objectors and refuse to go to war, because you can conscientiously object from a war that you do not fundamentally agree with. And if you do not fundamentally agree with going to war for Israel and to start a Holocaust or an Armageddon and ignite a holy war, then you can absolutely become a conscientious objector. If you are against a holy war in Iran, you're a conscientious objector.
I,
Like
I,
it's,
to me,
but
it's common sense. It's like
it is. And
I have Jewish ancestry. I'm my you know
I've got
my
a nice star of David on my forearm because I'm Jewish. My family's Jewish. I purposely put this here so that, because this is where they put Holocaust numbers,
mhm.
and I'm going to be damned if someone can put a fucking number on my forearm. So I put something
I
there instead.
I have Jewish ancestry on my mother's side. She did a DNA test and found out about it. On my father's side, my uncle by marriage is Jewish, and I grew up. I'm from the New York tri-state area, and half my classmates and teachers
Yep.
were
Yeah.
were
There's
Jewish.
more Jewish people in New York than there are Israel,
Yeah,
basically.
exactly,
Like,
exactly, and so I am not for. I'm not saying Iran is a good actor. They're
oh,
not.
no, absolutely not.
But I'm sorry. I also don't. I will say this till the cows come home. I believe in Israel's right to exist, but I also believe in the Palestinians' right to exist as well. And what's
Yes.
happening in Gaza is a genocide, and what
Yes.
they're trying to do in Iran is also they want to start a genocide there. And the only reason why they have not, is because Israel's too far. If
Hmm.
Israel was closer, they would have. Because at the end of the day, no one in their right mind, because people were talking about draft and all of that. I'm like, you don't understand. I am not worried about draft. I am worried about them more activating the guard and our reservists and leaving the homeland unprotected,
Hmm.
right? Because these
Because we don't have a
assholes,
national security apparatus
that
that
is,
is worth
yeah,
shit.
yeah, that we decimated due to Doge, right? And I'm worried about that and what's happening to our men, women, and gender nonconforming people who are in the service
Hmm.
now, and their families. because let's remember their families are being traumatized, and we need to make sure that we get the word out that if your family member wants to object and these orders are illegal, we need to make sure that this is talked about. If they're experiencing any disabling effects right away, they need to speak up. Do not keep it a secret. Let them say, hey, you know what, it's I'm going to say this, and I know some people are going to be like, well, getting dishonorable, bad contact. I'm like, at this point, I would rather have a dishonorable and be alive than and be able to go to bed at night. And I understand that sucks for employment, and I understand it ruins your life. Like, it can mess up your life in a lot of other ways, either bad contact or even general discharge. I know those aren't good. I understand that, but in those cases, there are times you got to take a stand, and we got to help. We got to help these people, like they got help during Vietnam, saying no, this person in the White House is not popular, and we're only here. And I'm going to say this, and Nick, I hope you're not going to be offended. We're only here because white folks did not want to elect the black lady, the black Asian lady, because they didn't trust her, and they were didn't care, and they cared more about their pockets, right, than they did about this country. But now it's like, I'm crying, and I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna say this, and I'm gonna get off my soapbox. Black women, the disability community specifically, who are not vets, right, told you, don't elect this man. And black men and
Oh no, we lost.
I'm sorry, the connection dropped for a second. I'm going to repeat that. Sorry, everyone. Three groups. Well, four. And it's not in order. Black women, disabled people that are not vets, black men, and Jewish people, right, said, don't elect him. No one listened. And now
and don't worry, I'm not offended.
Okay, I'm just saying, like, and I have white people, I have white Latino relatives. Most of my Latino relatives look more like you than me. So, and a lot of them voted for him. And I'm like, are you? So I have no sympathy, because I have friends who have kids that they're worried about going to get deployed. And I'm also worried that if they're expanding the age, they're raising the age. What if they decide to raise the age and say, hey, they don't care about your disability. They don't care. Like, they're like, oh, okay, in order for you to, like, we need you, we won't send you over there, but now we can't protect the homeland, and we're going to call you back, right? Like, this man is just all messed up. And that's why I'm so concerned. Like, we got to get these, and I'm going to say this, I am not a dove. I love our military. I support the military. I am a supporter of, I've always backed law enforcement, but I cannot support this illegal war. And I cannot support what they're doing to the people overseas. And how do we help them? How do we help their families? I mean, I'm on my soapbox. I'm getting off.
Yeah. So. No, your question is a really important one. And it's also one of the reasons when I talk about the war, I'm very explicit about separation of my care for the troops and our service members versus the institution that is currently being destroyed, and the government that is destroying it, and the occupant in the White House, the illegal occupant in the White House. And again, not offended in any way about what you just said. I voted for Kamala. I wanted her to win. I hoped she would have won. And I have lingering questions.
Yeah, there are people posting that in the chat. I cannot afford to engage in.
And I'm not. Yeah, and I won't engage further into any of the lingering questions. My questions are more around what do we do after an election itself, and how do we make sure that it is fully safeguarded and vetted? And I think automatic recounts and hand recounts of everything should be a requirement, not an option, not an
And
auditing option, but a
and you, it
requirement
should
on
be
every election.
it should be a requirement. You know what else should be a requirement? Election day should be a holiday. Because I know when
Yes.
my mother and stepfather were both
And so should
working.
the weekend before
Right,
election day so
right,
they can early vote. So
right.
people can early vote.
It should be it should be a holiday. When my my parents, when they were working, both worked in civil servants. They're both retired now. They got election day off
Hmm.
as a holiday, right? And my friends were like, they got election day off as like, they're like, that's so strange. And they're like, and that was the one thing the union fought to keep, because a lot of the people who worked in the county, they were county employees in New York State, didn't live in the county.
Hmm.
So they like lived in Connecticut, or they lived in whatever county they lived in, right? And so outside of the county where my parents, the county they worked for. And so having election day off for them, especially when they moved out of New York State, was beneficial because they wouldn't be able to vote
Hmm. Yeah.
otherwise.
And also having election day off would open up the ability for disabled people to have an easier time getting to the polls,
Yeah,
because then we could coordinate services for folks. We could help create a community service that offered rides for folks who needed them, who were unable to get there themselves. Or how do we like,
or for the or the for let's not leave out
or
the home health,
elderly.
or let's not leave out the personal PCAs and home health aides,
Hmm.
that we can't forget about them. That the people with disabilities, they can, they get permission to vote by mail. I vote by mail. Um, I always vote by mail because even because of my because of my neurodivergence, I get over. I need to be able to read,
Hmm.
and so voting by mail should be totally legal. I mean, I lived in Washington State when it was
Oh yeah, I did too
100%
for almost 10 years.
100% vote by mail state, and it's one of the
So
state.
easy.
It's so easy. It was like, put it in the mail.
I
Put it.
remember when Washington State shifted from caucusing to just vote by mail in primaries, and I was like, holy crap, this is so much better. Like, what a fantastic change that was, because it gave everyone the opportunity to vote. And if you lost your ballot and didn't mail it in, you could go to a polling location and get a new one. It was
Yeah,
that easy.
yeah,
But going back to what we were talking about on the like, how do we help service members and their families right now, is we have to be very, very distinct on what we how we talk about our service members versus those who are running the war. Like the
we need to not treat them like we treated,
we
you
need to
know,
not treat them like we treated the Vietnam vets or
right.
the Afghan war vets or the Iraq vets or the Gulf War
I
vets.
I wonder though, because I know when my brother came back from 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 Iraq, he was not treated this. I mean, he wasn't treated like, depended on the situation, but for the most
Yes.
part, they didn't treat him in the same way they treated Vietnam vets. I also think that we still had some of that carryover from 9/11,
Hmm.
too, and that actually even kind of lasted until uh, Osama bin Laden was found and killed, right?
Hmm.
I'm, so I do think, there were people who didn't agree with the war, but they also knew, like, yeah, this is a war for oil, but it's also like this convoluted thing because,
Yeah.
like, it got convoluted with a lot of things that didn't make sense. But that's what my concern is. I'm a student of history, so my parents were children, and so was my father. He was born a couple of years. My father graduated high school in 1974. So if he were
We lost her again for a second, but that's okay.
oh my
Haha,
god.
you're back.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap
As
this
we
up.
play roulette.
And we're gonna wrap this up. So if my father talked about this when he was in the military. I'm gonna just end with this. My father was graduated high school in 1974. If he would have been born 2 years before, he would have graduated in 1972. He would have gotten drafted because remember we didn't pull out of Vietnam until 1973. And my father talked about when he and I my father was in the military when I was born, and I remember I have memories as a little girl how the soldiers were treated because we were stationed in Alaska. The soldiers were not treated well, even though none of these people fought. These were all like people who signed up after, and they were still treated like crap. So how
I
do we?
think we've begun to treat soldiers and service members in general better post-war since Vietnam, but I think we have created such a mythos around service members that we can't criticize or distinguish between like how do we treat them better. Like, and at this point too, we're regressing in how we treat our service members because we're entering a war or we're in a war that nobody wants. None of us want this. None of us want to be there. None of us want our service members to be there. None of us want this to be, well, I can't say none. There's plenty of people who do want this. However, I'm fairly certain the majority of the American populace does not want this and sees this as a threat to us and a threat to our service members' safety and a threat to our own national safety and safety in the homeland and whatever it is, it's a threat and it's going to hurt our service members. But unfortunately, I think we're going to lose the focus we have on safeguarding and supporting service members because people are going to get so angry about what is happening that it's going to get reconvoluted again. And my fear is that this will be harkened back to a Vietnam of how people respond in America towards service members. And the only thing that will do is push service members further to the right and push them further away from the support and the help systems that they need or the communities that they need. Like if you talk to Chris Goldsmith, he's a great example of someone who came out of the service who was lost, who was angry, who fell down the right wing rabbit hole, who was a libertarian until he started reading more books and went to community college. And a veterans group at the community college was like, hey, you look alone and look like you need our help. What's up, man?
I need you to call Isaiah.
Okay.
I need my water bottle. I forgot it.
Okay. I can in a little bit. You need to wait.
Okay.
That's what happens when you have kids. They need your help.
They always do. I'm also Uncle Nick half the time. I have a nephew that I watch a lot. So most people during my shows they'll go Uncle Nick, Uncle Nick, Uncle Nick, or the piano start playing in the background of my shows because he turns on my keyboard and he starts smashing away at it. I love it because it makes me happy.
I'm so glad to see you smiling. I just want to say this is what I want to say to the audience. So number one, I'm just going to say this to everyone. This is going to be usually when Disability Community for Democracy usually does live streams. We only save this for only provide full access to paid subscribers. We are going to allow access to everyone because we need this to get out. So I just want everybody to see that.
I love that.
It's
And thank you for having me.
it's the
Thank
right
you
thing
for
to,
inviting me here.
it's the right thing to do, right? Like I'm gonna say this, like I am a family member of multiple veterans. I cannot in good conscience be like, uh, you need help to help your family member figure out what you're gonna go through and then say, oh, you gotta pay for that. No.
Mhm.
That does not gonna sit well. That does not sit well with me. That's not how I roll. I mean, of course, I mean there are times you gotta pay for stuff, but this is not it. This is not it. And the thing I want to say to you about what you're doing is that if men and women can watch your masculinity show and like learn, like don't fall down the dark side rabbit hole around masculinity and what that's supposed to look like, and if we can get the word out now, right, while this is still relatively fresh, where they are like, okay, they're, and I'm not even going to say progressive because I am a moderate conservative, and I know this is wrong, right? Like nah, like don't say no. These people are hateful. They're not conservative. They're anti-American people in the White House. They are nationalists. They're not Christians either. Just want to make this clear. As somebody who has gone to church, I am no longer go to church on a regular basis, but has read the Bible. No, I have sat in a lot of different religious services, with my Jewish relatives as well. No, these people are not people of faith. These people are monsters, and they're
Mhm.
harming our soldiers for profit. I didn't feel that way totally with Iraq because, or
By
even
the end, I think a lot
I
of us felt that
I
way.
did, but in the beginning I didn't.
Yeah.
But
Once
it
we found out what Halliburton and Dick Cheney were doing, a lot of us were like, yeah, no,
no,
whoa,
this
you
was,
guys
yeah,
suck.
yeah. But I'm talking about like in 02, 03, 04. I
Yeah.
still I that's when my brother went. I was like, okay, this is a good cause. I could, like, I'll be sad, but I could support it and write him and call him and all of that. But my point for you is I mean, my platform isn't as big as yours, but you know what I do have? I do have access in other ways, right? So Substack's not the only place that disability community for democracy is in. And if we can let disability groups know that we need to come together and help people who are coming back disabled, then we can do better, because we talked about this before we came online. We can't have this separation anymore between disabled vets and the people with disabilities who are not vets. We just can't. We're not going to survive if we do that, and we got to come together. That's my
Yes.
thoughts. That's my thoughts. But what is your thoughts?
Yes. And absolutely. I'm a progressive in so many ways, and you and I would probably have an interesting policy discussions. However, I bet you we agree on so many just fundamental human things that it doesn't even matter. Like, I don't find those labels as useful
Mhm.
anymore. It's really what we need is we need to come back, and everyone needs to know that they have a space that values and cares for them, and that so many of these service members and their families need that right now, need it
Mhm.
right now, and we need to be prepared for when they start coming home
Now.
to get ahead of the other organizations that will come in and offer them brotherhood or sisterhood or otherhood. I won't say otherhood because they don't like trans people or anyone who's
Right.
gender non-conforming. But if we don't build the spaces before they're needed, they won't be available when they're needed. And
Mhm.
so we have to continue building these spaces and having these discussions and opening these conversations and having the intelligent masculinity discussions and giving men a space that they can see themselves in and see themselves as valued in, so that they don't have to feel like they need to fall down that rabbit hole. And one of those things that they can do, and I do that, don't come on yet. You guys hold on, nerds. Can you just wait? I'm finishing up. Okay.
Tell them 5 more minutes.
I just want to show off something from my daughter.
Go ahead.
I played part of this animation earlier today, but my daughter is an incredible little artist.
Nice.
And this is an animation she has been working on. Let me get it to start.
Love it.
So she's working on eyes and animation, and it's freaking awesome. And I love it. And I'm glad that I got to show that off again.
And tell your daughter thank you for sharing that with the audience, because they're
thank you, love.
They're loving it. The thing I will say is you're right. We need to think about this. We need to start building now. We also, and we would agree on a lot of things. I say this all the time. I'm a moderate conservative when it comes to certain things, right? But when it comes to humanity, like civil rights and human rights, we are on the same page there. We might not be on the same page around tax cuts and budgets and other things, but
the important things we are.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to, if you tell me that Nick doesn't have a right to exist because he's Jewish, I'm going to punch you in your face. Right? You got have a problem. If you tell me Nick doesn't have a right to exist because he fought in a war that was actually legal, then you're going to have a problem, because, again, he was doing his job, and that was his job, and we were attacked, right? You're going to have a problem. I'm not going to punch you in your face because it's a job debate versus debating someone's humanity, but it's still kind of sort of bad form, right?
Yeah.
But I say this to people all the time. I can't debate tax cuts around the big thievery bill or funding the government when people are being shot in the street, and we are, with ICE, and we are having illegal wars. Right? I can't do that. It's just and people don't understand why I am the way I am, because I'm our house is on fire. And until we fix our house and address, and this is where I'm going to end here, we address the racism, the ableism, the eugenics, the homophobia, the transphobia, and the sexism, and until we get that out of our system of government, right? We're going to be dealing with this every 4 to 8 years. We're going to get, and I don't care. I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I won't be surprised if we have a Democratic form of MAGA in 8 years. I won't be surprised. It's going to look different, but it's still going to be based in ableism and white supremacy and classism, but classism in a different way. It's going to be tax everybody. It's going to be tax everybody. Doesn't matter. We're not going to equalize. We're going to take from everybody. And we're going to burn it all down, and we're going to pay the people back that did it to us. And I'm going to say this: everyone who's thinking that need to learn from Black folks. Black folks and indigenous people in this country are the ones that have lost the most, and have never said, we're going to take from you. We're going to take everything you've stolen for us, right? And our ancestors. None of those groups have ever said that. You know what they've said? We just want a just society, and we want compensation for the harm you caused, and an apology. And let's be more equitable. That's it. But this is really a both sides kind of sort of thing, just different. Until that happens, we're going to have these wars, right? And we're going to have them, and they're going to still be disabling, and they're not going to care, because remember, what who was president when we increased our increased our role in Vietnam? It wasn't a Republican, it was a Democrat. We leave that part out. So this is not brand new, and we were got into Vietnam illegally.
Mm-hmm. We went into Venezuela illegally not too long ago too, but not to get into those extra conversations.
No, I'm not trying to get into extra. No, but I'm just saying the history.
No.
It's not about political party. It's about the people who, and LBJ was pretty progressive, unlike the current occupant. Even though he's racist as hell, but he still was pretty progressive at the same time in certain aspects. But he was still a warmonger. Mm-hmm. That's why he didn't run in 1968. He decided to drop out. So that's why he's like, why the current occupant's being a coward. But it's too late. People are already disabled.
Yes. We've already had service members die. We've had service members injured. We've had service members who have felt the brunt of this war already, and they're not going to get the support from the institution that they need. So we need to be that support.
And what we also need to, we need to hold our state, especially some of these people are being deployed through the National Guard, right? Because we don't know if these are if they're active duty members or reservists or National Guard members. But if they've activated some National Guard units, we need to hold the states accountable to make sure that they help these people, because these people under their command first. Mm-hmm. And we cannot let the state say, well, the federal government activated them, it's their problem. No, it's also yours, because these people signed up for the National Guard to do state stuff. I mean, they understood that they could be deployed, but
when you sign up for the Guard, you know that your primary role is to support your state.
Right. And that's what people like my brother signed up for, and his buddies that he ended up getting deployed with. They signed up for state duty, not war. And so we need to just make sure that if any of these people were, activated via and they don't activate whole units now. They're pulling people from units and deploying them. So we need to just make sure that if these people were activated and they are National Guard people, that they get the care that they need, because they're not gonna get the same level of care as somebody who was deployed.
That's why they're sending National Guard over active service members, because they know that the effort to get care afterwards is so much more challenging for National Guard members than it is for those of us who were active.
And the only reason why my brother was able to get his rating so quickly was because my brother was active duty first, and he re-upped in the National mm-hmm. Guard. And so he's like, I don't want to be in the Marines. I don't want to stay another 4 years in the Marines. I want to go back home to my state. What can I do? They're like, oh, you can just do the National Guard. Like, great. So he went home. He's like, he had time left, and they were going to reactivate him. He knew he was going to get reactivated anyway, because they were reactivating all of his buddies in the Marines. He's like, I'm just going to go to the National Guard. And that's why, and that's the thing. If you and we need to also educate those in the National Guard who switch from active to National Guard, that they have more protection than those who were straight National Guard or reservists, mm-hmm. Because you do get treated differently if you served active first. So we need to make sure that all of this information is getting out. So the disabling effects of war, they're going to come back angry. They're going to come back scared. They're going to come back having tendinitis, like my brother has, and sleeping with the TV on because if they sleep with the TV off, they're never going to get any sleep, right? But at least we can make sure that these services are available for their families.
And not hard to find.
Yeah, and not hard to find, right? That's key. Not hard to find. So we're gonna wrap. We went at half an hour longer than we planned, and Nick, I hope that wasn't
Totally fine by me.
being on with me wasn't too much, wasn't too torturous.
No, I had such a blast tonight. Thank you.
So tell people where they can find you.
Yeah. So thank you for having me tonight. This was a really wonderful conversation. And for those who don't know me too well yet, you can find me at Sick of This Shit Publications here on Substack. And that's my primary home where I do my discussions on chronic illness, on progressive politics, and breaking away from far-right ideologies and taking on white supremacy ideology and the manosphere. And then the big one that I do is my intelligent masculinity series. And so I'm here on Substack for Sick of This Shit Publications. You can find me at sickofthis.substack.com, or you can also find me at bannerandbackbone.com, which is my more civics-based platform for techno-fascism discussions, our anti-fascist book club that we do based on the Veterans Fighting Fascism model, which is also another great resource for people who want to find community. Is start your own book club, start your own anti-fascist book club, because you'll find community real quick. There's a lot of people who want to be anti-fascist. They just don't know what that actually means or what the resources really are. And so you can find me on either one of those, but find me here on Substack. And you'll see me all the time. You guys always do. I'm always around. I'm always writing. And I'm always posting and always podcasting. And when I'm not, I'm being a house dad. And I love that role.
Well, I'm going to just tell people where they can find me. So I am the CEO and founder of Disability Community for Democracy. You can subscribe to Nothing About Us Without Us. We primarily focus on disability issues 100%. Most of the issues we focus on are non-vet issues. But just to make an announcement, there's 2 announcements now. Number 1, we are doing a disability series for Disability Pride Month, focusing into audio series. So if you want to know when that's happening, you need to subscribe to Nothing About Us Without Us, because that's happening in July during Disability Pride Month. Nick is going to be one of the people I'm interviewing to talk about just what we talked about tonight, but from a different perspective, just from like being a disabled vet. And there's going to be some other people that you're going to know and some people that you don't know. Some are Substackers, some are not. And then we have a live stream bi-monthly, which means twice a month or semi-monthly, as that's another word for it, called Tell You No Lie. And we discuss disability culture. So everything from what we talked about as part of our normal discourse to this Friday, it's at 7 p.m. to 9. It's our Autism Acceptance Month special, and we're having 4 people on who are going to talk about their experiences with autism. We're going to have an announcement from a friend of mine. I'm not going to, at the beginning. So if you want to watch it, again, you want to find out, subscribe to Nothing About Us Without Us. We publish twice a week. We do this monthly series called Disability Conversations. We did that. That actually episode came out today with Lachi. She's a blind Grammy Award winning singer. And certainly that episode actually came out. And so and I'm going to say this, I'm going to toot my own horn. We are the only, and I'm sorry, I got to brag on myself. I don't do a good job about it.
We have to do it.
But Nick is a free subscriber, which is awesome, and I appreciate you being a free subscriber and sharing my stuff. my org stuff because it's not mine. It's under my organization, Disability Community for Democracy. But we're the only disability publication that has writers besides me. Most of the content, a lot of the writing content does not come from me. It comes from other writers with disabilities. I do more of I will say this, I do write sometimes, but if you see me, it's either audio or live stream at this point because this takes more spoons than the writing does. So if you're interested in getting involved with Disability Community for Democracy in any way, either through, volunteering for our leadership positions or, doing a one-off piece, please reach out. You can DM me directly. I'm on Substack, Naive to Green. So I just want to say thank you to Nick. I'm sorry for some of the technical issues tonight with the live stream. I don't know why. I was getting some gremlins. I do think once I closed some of my tabs, that did help. But Nick, do you want to say anything else before we close, or you just want to say
other than thank you for having me on, and thank you for all of the folks who are with us on Substack and watching and listening in. We've got 151 on Substack.
I was blown away. I was blown away. I'm like, are these people here for me and you? Like yeah,
they're definitely here for us. Like they're here for both of us.
I'm like, there's no way people are here for me. Like I'm gonna be honest. I'm like, there's no way people are.
Don't beat yourself down. Don't beat yourself down. They're here for both of us. They're here for a whole ass conversation, and I think they got it. And yeah. I just want to say I appreciate you and everyone who's here listening in, because this is such an important topic area and life for so many of us. And we're not going to be silent, and we're not going to back down from discussing them.
And I want to just say this. It's not just life for the veterans who are coming back for this. It also impacts us. And this still impacts my life, even though my brother's been out of the military for almost 20 years.
And when veterans' disability rights increase, others' disability rights tend to increase as well.
Well, I'm going to say this: we would not have this 1973 Rehabilitation Act if it wasn't for Vietnam vets. That actually kicked off the disability rights movement, which was primarily led by non-disabled, by disabled people who were not veterans. I tongue-tied. But it wouldn't be here. We wouldn't have the Rehabilitation Act. It was updated because of the disabled vets that were coming back from Vietnam. They did the same thing in the 40s. Every single time the people with disabilities who are vets come back, we need to do a better job of making sure that they don't feel separated from the disability community in general. And this is why Disability Community for Democracy exists, because we fight for liberal democracy for everybody. And I don't care, me personally, I don't care if you were born with a disability, you acquired a disability due to an accident, or you acquired a disability due to your service to this country. You are part of us, you're part of our community, and we should treat you as such, and we should not do this Olympics thing. It's not fair that the vets get and we don't, or it's not fair that people who aren't disabled, who are disabled but they're not vets, they get certain things that we don't get access to. We need to come together, take the best of both, and put pressure on the government to say, stop pulling this people's disability benefits, allow people with disability and their family members access to the VA, because some of us became disabled. We weren't disabled until our family members went into the military and got traumatized. And then we got traumatized because of it. So allow us to also access services too.
They should be universal.
They should, but it definitely should be for the family members, the immediate family members of the people who serve, and we should not be left figuring out how to get help, because that's what I had to do when my brother came
Mhm.
back. My brother was traumatized. I'm like, he's mad. I had to figure it out myself.
Mhm.
That should not be happening.
No.
Family members, we deploy together, we come back together, and we suffer the effects together, and that's what we need to do. So I'm
Mhm.
going to say peace out to everyone. And
See you.
Nick, I want to say thank you, and I want
No.
to say thank you to everyone. And we have 157 people now, and we're going to say good night, everyone. And this is going to go out. Nick, I am going to add you as a guest contributor to this. So
I should already be added. I accepted the invite,
you
so
did?
I should already be
Okay.
added. Yes.
So I'm going to send this out, and you should be able to send it out too. I'll
Yeah,
pull
and
it
I'll
out to
send
you.
this out I'll send this out for everybody, either tonight or tomorrow, with a nice write up for it.
Yeah, and I'm also for subscribers to Nothing About Us Without Us. If you don't subscribe to Nick, you will also get a write up about this. Mine is not going to be as nice as 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 Nick's, but it will be something. Nick, if you, I'm gonna end the live stream, and if you can just stay on, because I just need to just ask you a quick question.
Yeah, not a
Good night,
problem.
everyone.